What is up, ninjas? My name is Sam World. This is my 6-inch mic, Steve.
Hello.
I recently got asked, yo, Sam, can you make a video about reverb and how you would go about in programming it? So obviously, I'm taking your request, dude. Now in today's video, guys, I'm going to be using a new track that I'm currently working on in collaboration with a producer by the name of Hot Tinga. It's going to be a tribal tech house rolling bass kind of thing, which sounds like this. So the idea of today's video is there's a lot of tutorials out there on reverb, on the different kinds of reverb, but there's nothing about how to use reverb in practicality. Pretty much talking a little bit about theory. So I wanted to use this track to talk about ways that you can use reverb in your track without messing it up, Jimmy. As always, guys, if you want to support my channel, make sure to check out my sound design work over at evilsounds.com. And for those of you guys that know, I'm also starting to release music, since a lot of you guys are always asking, where can you hear the music from these tutorials? So hopefully a label signs this one. It still doesn't sound good because, as many of you guys say, it hasn't been mastered yet. Now, the first question that we got to get out of the way is, what is reverb? Pretty much reverb is going to be a bunch of echoes where you can't tell the difference between them. So now you have this blob of sound coming at you. It usually sounds like you're at a church praying for God and screaming, "Dear God, don't let me go to hell. I promise I'll use Ableton Live 10, 10, 10, 10." So the first thing to target is our claps. Now this is probably the best part where I can kind of show you guys that reverb is not about chasing tails, long tails. You can use reverb to put the clap in a room and just give it a little bit more of an interesting feel. Put the whole track in a space so it sounds bigger. Okay, so here we have a John Sign clap. Again, this is a collab. I wouldn't use it out of my own way. Just kidding though. It's pretty good. It's a pretty decent clap. There's an evil sample there. Okay, so we have the claps layered like this. Now, the first thing you got to realize with claps is you got to train your ear to hear out for reverb. I do hear a bit of reverb there, but it's not my favorite. And as you can see, it's very dry. What I'm going to do is use a reverb. Now, from here, we know, go study your different kinds of reverbs, but the reverbs that I know work for me when it comes to clap are going to be smaller type of reverbs, and that's where we go to room reverbs. Room reverbs are going to be amazing for any kind of reverb that you want to put something in a space, make it sound organic. You can also make it sound crazy, but usually they're going to have low sizes, and they're there to pretty much put your sound somewhere without creating a huge mess. It's pretty much very tasteful. It's sort of like the dude that knows everything but isn't obnoxious about it. Okay, so we're gonna go with, again, the ambience preset. The only reason I'm touching that one is because I've seen it work and it works really well for me. From here, you can kind of see the programming that we're hitting is gonna be, like I said, a very low size. It could be a lot lower, so I'm gonna put it down just a tad bit more. From there, you can see the K time is very low, and for some reason they put it at 100%. I'm gonna be using it at a fairly low value. Now from here, I always like using an oscilloscope to put my reverbs. Why? I've been very methodical about using oscilloscopes to see how reverb is adding to the sound, how it's changing it in a waveform format. The main reason, I'm going to show you guys my reasoning for this now. So obviously we have the clap. Now the question is, the point of the reverb, what is it? I'm adding tail. That's all I'm doing. So it's pretty safe to say, theoretically, I don't want to have the reverb swamp, again, this part of the clap here. I want it to come in pretty much in the tail. Now, from a sound design perspective, this is also good to know. So when I play the clap, we can kind of see, okay, the clap comes in here. I can right click in this little plugin and then pretty much find the meat of it. From there, it's about 33.9 milliseconds. So I want my reverb to come in around this area here. So what I'm going to do is use my pre-delay, set it to around 30. Okay, we all know how to read. Okay, and then we're going to do this. Put it at 100. And you're going to notice that the reverb's going to come in right there. So now, with it off, you can see what it does. Now, I still think this is too much for me. I don't like this reverb as I'm hearing it. The main reason is, like I said, usually there's types of reverbs where it's not about the tone. You don't have to hear it, but it creates an impact. We want it to sound a little more natural. This clap sounds like it's in a fucking psychotic chamber, like without it. It's like, that does not sound cool. So we're going to put it around there, maybe a little smaller. Notice how it's slight, but it's tasteful, and that's the important thing. Now, I know I'm going to get people in the comments saying, yes, but what about this and that? Again, there's this exceptions to this. Of course, if you're making a different kind of genre, then you can put a long-ass reverb, like if you're doing future bass, which is kind of dead. Boom, you want to have that snare, like, you know, then fine. You know, you could do the gate. You know, that's totally fine. It's all going to be based on what you're making at the time, but majority of the time for most of the genres you guys are making, your drums, the reverbs don't really need to be like that, the practical ones. Notice how it adds a little flavor to the clap and also pushes it a little bit more in the mix. That's something good to do again. So I always do that to the claps. Now, when it comes to drums, again, I also like adding reverb to my whole drum group, because using reverb to tie everything together is also a really good way to go about it. So usually what I'll do is I'll have a drum bus. As you can see here, we have drum reverb, but it doesn't look like I'm using this as a drum reverb. It's probably for some cool part in the song. What we're going to do is change that. Now, again, room reverbs is what I want. Now, the point of this reverb is just to tie, again, all my drums together. So we're going to go with, again, another room. Probably this one, I usually go with a dark small room or a drum room. It's very simple to use. You're going to put a return track. Now, we use return tracks because, one, saves CPU power, and you don't want to swamp your drums. And at the same time, it's a lot easier to turn one knob. You can get very methodical about this, but it hasn't steered me wrong to route the whole drum bus into that group. Now you can see it sounds a little weird, so let's just go with the normal drum. Now from here you can see there's a lot of air being added, so from there you can EQ in the return without messing anything else up, and you can see that we don't want to do any brick wall cuts here. We don't want to alter phase, so we're just going to go with the normal ones. Right click over sample. Now we do want to hear in retrospect of the song. I still think the decay time's a little too long, so we're going to go down a bit. Yeah, now it sounds good, don't it? Okay, so again, maybe this isn't the right. I might go back and just rethink everything, when it comes to drums and whatnot. But if you get anything from this part of the tutorial with drums and reverb, just know that usually you want to be very clean. You don't need long tails for the reverb. You want to put the drums in a room. This is going to allow you to, one, tie all the drums together. Okay, now, again, if you're using drums with reverb already on them, I would suggest, again, hopefully you watch all my videos because you already know what I'm going to say. Go into the loop. Turn this into yeah, use a gate and get rid of it. Make it very yeah, and then from there add your own reverb, so that way you tie all your drums together. They sound great, and you can get some Latinas to shake that booty. All right, now let's move on to vocals. Vocals are a little bit different because that's where you can really have fun with reverb. The biggest problem I see, though, with a lot of people when they send in their tracks, again, I'm a pro at that too, giving feedback on tracks. I get a lot of bad music and good music as well, and music with potential. But one of the biggest things I see mistakes with vocals is the swamping of the vocals. So pretty much think of myself right now as a lifeguard, and I see someone drowning someone. You're the person drowning vocals, because a lot of you guys put too much reverb on your vocals, okay? So again, it all depends on the track. Of course, you can go crazy with it, but you have to do it clean. So with vocals, there's this part of the track I want to have, which is what I would call a moment in the track, a moment where people go get Coronas at the bar because the track is boring, or a moment where they're like, oh, they feel the vocal just get very anthemic. So creating a moment like that, you can use reverb to signify that. So in this section here, we're going to do it. So it's going to be... Okay, now that sounds drier than grandma, obviously, right? And it doesn't feel anthemic for you, okay? And that's totally fine because we're gonna do it right now, okay? So we have our vocal here, which we're gonna route. Okay, we have our vocal reverb, which there's nothing there. So the question again is, every time you put reverb on something, have a purpose. Don't just be like, so-and-so put reverb, I'm gonna put reverb. I'm gonna put reverb to make it sound big. That's the horrible answer. I'm gonna put reverb to set a theme, to make the vocal sound big. Fuck, what am I doing with my life? You get the idea. This is what I mean. Teaching sometimes, if you're not reading from a textbook, it's hard. Okay, so with vocals, this is where you can get really creative, because I think vocals are one of like the chameleons in the world of reverb, that you can really put any kind of reverb on it and you can make it sound good, depending again on what you're trying to do. Is the vocal a vocal chop in the background, or is it in the forefront? So in this section, again, I want this to sound big. Endemic. So that's the purpose of this reverb, is that it needs to give me that. So with reverbs, I can go chamber, I can go hall. Chamber and halls are usually going to be bigger. They're not going to have too much colored like plate, and smaller ones that sound very metallic. They're going to be a little bit more pleasant. They add depth to the mix. And again, you can go watch a video on people explaining this crap. We're going to take it practical. So for this, I want to go with something short reverb, because she talks really fast and a lot, and I'm not making trance or Anjuna deep stuff. But at the same time, I want that feel, right? So I'm going to probably go with a medium or small hall for this. They have a vocal hall. Let's try a vocal hall, and we're going to drop that in. Now let's check the decay time, about 3 seconds. Now, like we talked before, the vocal is really going fast. You can see it's so I don't really need that decay time to be 3 seconds, to be honest. I need it to be around maybe like a second at max. The reasoning again is that the vocal is going to trigger the reverb constantly, okay? So what we're going to do is hit it. So like I said, it already sounds like crap, because again, the decay time is too much. And if you're going to focus when it comes to reverb on anything, use presets, but always focus on your size and your decay time. And of course the EQ after. So again, like I say, that's too much. So we're going to go maybe 1 second. Now again, just in review, because everyone needs practicality. We're doing this because she's speaking really fast. She's not going, oh, and then I want a long swell of reverb. I want this to sound like endemic. So you can kind of see there. I also want it kind of wide. The vocals down the center, right? So I want maybe a little bit more stereo. Okay, now this reverb's really not tickling my fancy. First off, it's not making, I want people to hear the reverb because it's going to make it big, but it's not hitting anything, right? So this is where I ditch the ship before it sinks like the Titanic, and try and find something else, right? So maybe we can hit it with a gymnasium now. Maybe a dark hall would be the better bet here. So again, not hitting any of that. So one more time, I'm going to try and find one. And I think, you know what it is? I think I just need a room one. Okay, so this one's a little closer to what I want. So now I'm going to add an EQ to that and go in. And again, just maybe... Oh man, that delay's gonna go off. Let's get rid of it. Get out of there, delay. All right, so it's time to talk about the flute. So again, if you kind of realizing with the reverbs, a lot of people for some reason run reverbs at 11 seconds and stuff like that. We're not running it at that. And in fact, like I said, even making trance and stuff like that, the only reason you would run reverbs that long is because you want to create an effect, like sound design based. You have a pad, etc., stuff like that. Vocal beds, which are you can add long reverbs to those. But majority of the time, guys, if I had to give you like, Sen, you got to give me like limitations when it comes to reverb. No more than 3 seconds is pretty much what I'm going to say. Again, it depends on the genres. If you're making like big room, then it's different. But in this scenario, practicality, you don't need very long reverbs. So the last thing we're going to talk about in this track in adding reverb is going to be on the flute, which is going to be a pretty dominant part of this track, okay? So this is going to be the flute. So in this track, I want to make the flute, again, similar to the vocal in the break, sound very anthemic, okay? So I have two options. One, I can use the vocal reverb that I use to tie it together, make it sound more natural. People already have that in their brain, that this track has this sort of sound. It's put in this place, right, with a lot of the reverbs we picked. However, if we want to do it for the sake of the tutorial, I can also switch that. Okay, for instance, with the flute, that's probably what I would do as a producer, is say, hey, I already have this vocal one that I used in the break. Let's try it on the flute. So however, for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to put a longer reverb on this. So what I'm going to do is, again, we talked a lot about practicality in this video, and of course there's a lot of reverbs out there like springs and whatnot. I don't use those, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, so that's why I kind of steer away from them. But if I had to put a flute on this, I want to create, I would use a hall, a plate, a chamber. Those are the three, and then from there you have obviously variations to that, like a dark chamber, or like a Jesus Christ, Saint Linus chamber, or like, you know, Jesus is gonna save you. You get the point. So for this, let's try maybe a medium concert, not on this guy, but maybe on the flute, which would go here in the A, and let's put that on. So from there, I'm gonna set that to the flute. From there, again, everyone knows about this. We are going to sidechain the reverb to the flute if we're going to go with longer decay times. It's very crucial you do that. You can also sidechain it to the kick. Here, we're just going to sidechain it to channel 31, which is going to be the fluter. Again, I want to create atmosphere. So I have to EQ this differently, it looks like, to get the decay time. I'm putting it up, but it's not giving me the 4 seconds. Sounds a little better. Okay, so here is where I would decide to compress this. The main reason is I want this reverb to come out a lot more. That's the main purpose. So we're going to put a glue. Okay, now to end the video, I do want to give you guys an example of where I would use a longer decay time on reverb. And one of the things that you'll use in your music a lot, and you know, again, it's going to be uplifters, downlifters, and whatnot. These are going to be pretty much effects you use, which, as many of you guys know, uplifters will usually sound like. Okay, and then downlifters will sound something like this. Now, as a sound designer, I do use reverb a lot with high decay times to create some of these. For example, I'll show you guys a more practical way. Let's say I have this effect here in the song, and I want there to be pretty much a ring out so that it helps the transition. This is a part of the track where like pretty much the crowd is going wild, the peak time energy is there, and I'm trying to take them into the moment that we did with the vocal, right? So we have this coming in like this. Obviously, you're not getting a cool effect because there's no reverb. So again, this is where I would probably use reverb in a long decay time setting. But again, the reason I would do this is more of a sound design thing. I feel like I'm trying to create something new with that uplifter, pretty much a response to it. So this is where I would use like maybe a bright long reverb, where I would pretty much automate it to go up as we approach that. So from there, let's see how that would sound like. We're just going to do this. It's still there.
cualquiera, donde sea, papi. No.
Okay, you get the idea there. So again, I would pay more attention to that, but this is a setting where I could use long reverb because it's a one specific thing. It's where I'm trying to create the moment. All right, guys, and that has been the video about reverb. Again, just wanted to give you guys some practicalities with it, as I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube that explain the different kinds of reverbs and how some have early reflections, late reflections, and all good stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When I'm picking a reverb, I don't really care. It's more about what sounds good. We're in a day and age where like experimentation is good, but you also want to train your ears to understand what sounds good, okay? So again, with reverbs, as long as you understand decay, size, practicality, why you don't want to go with the long decay, right? You don't want to, let's say you have a vocal that talks a lot, that means shorter decay time. If it's a vocal where it's like, I love you, and then there's a big empty gap there and you want to fill it, then by all means use a long decay time. Again, be smart with what you're doing with the reverb, always have a purpose, and be practical. Everyone can learn theory, but it's important to practice it, put it in a track, and make sure you understand what sounds good. Other than that, like I said, guys, if you want to support the channel, make sure to head over to evosounds.com where you can find all of my sound design work. I have a new track out also, which you can hear on Spotify. I'll make sure to leave a link down below for that. And if you want to support it on Beatport, that would also mean the world to me if you got a few dollars to spare. Maybe no Starbucks for a day, who knows? But other than that, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support over the years. I'll catch you guys next time with another video. Take care. Peace out. My son's tutor, I think, is coming in right now, so I have to end the video here. Peace out.